Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. My name is Brandon. I'm a lifetime Seminole fan.
And I'm Chris, and I'm a excited Gator fan.
And we are putting aside our differences as rivals to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. And Chris, it was quite an off-season for 2021, so why don't we just take a couple minutes? We'll talk a little bit about COVID, not too much, name, image, and likeness, and then kind of get into where we are right before the season begins.
Yeah, man. Last year COVID hit, and that was the talk of the town in college football. And are we going to have a season? And no, we're not. Yes, we are. It's going to be different. And we thought that was, the craziness was behind us. And lo and behold, we got a couple bombs dropped on the college football landscape this offseason. Starting off with the name, image, and likeness, which did not see coming at all. I know they had talked about it for years as a potential thing, and you hadn't heard about it for a while. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it got greenlit, and now players can make money off their name, image, and likeness. And I'm kind of torn. I really don't know where I land on it. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, and how would I feel about it? My initial reaction is hesitation and hold up. I don't really like the change too much, but I'm trying to get a different perspective from it, and I have some concerns down the road on some things I'll talk about in a little bit, but I really don't know where I land on this.
Yeah, it comes with a myriad of reactions, if you might go with me on that, and I know that for a long time you've wanted the NCAA college football game to come back, just like me.
Yes. Yes.
So
maybe selfishly, part of me is like, go for it, to be honest, because I 2021 and the NCAA 14 was the last one, so wow. 7 years ago. I still have it, still play it, but I'd like a new one, selfishly.
Understood. And I'm curious to hear your reservations on it, and a couple of quick thoughts on my end, if I may. First thought is that if there's, tens of thousands of college athletes, I think of it as now there are tens of thousands of job openings for that same pool of athletes. Some will take advantage of that, and some will go work. Some won't have the skills or the persona or the name recognition, and maybe the top 5% will. And so they're definitely going to cash in. I think you and I were talking earlier, is that De'Aaron King was one of the first people to really take advantage of that. Yeah. And, it's an untested market. We're really wading into uncharted waters here. Supply and demand, we really don't know what that looks like or how this will even work, because the sports existed for decades without it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to throw a crazy analogy at you if you're okay with that.
Yeah. I always look forward to your crazy analogies.
Oh, boy. So, did you know that Costco sells caskets?
I was unaware.
Yeah, so do.
Not surprised, but unaware.
So it's kind of crazy. A weird rule change some time ago allowed before this rule change, only funeral homes would sell you a casket, okay? So follow me on this.
Okay.
Once the rule changed, what did all these businesses do? They said, hey, we're going to have floods of caskets. We're going to have stock rooms. We're going to have showcases. We're going to have all of these options for you. Well, what they failed to realize is there was no demand for these kinds of things in people's homes. They only bought it when they absolutely had to. So They quickly realized the demand is not there until it's an absolute need. And so all of these companies stopped producing and stopped selling these products.
Okay.
So they went crazy with I'm going to stock up. I'm going to have full, the consumer can buy it from anyone now. And we're going to be the person they're going to buy it from. Well, oops, that backfired. And the demand just wasn't there. So right now with college football, that's how this is. Mackenzie Milton and 3 other players from Florida State charged $2,000 to enter a restaurant at Miller's Ale House to have a meet and greet. Because, hey, we'll just slap a price tag on it and see who pays. We just really don't know what the demand is for us, and heck, if someone pays us $2,000 to come in, have dinner, and ask us questions, we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, if they can do it, do it. If people are going to pay, charge them. It's very brand new, and I mean, people are gonna. I've seen some random things from players. I think it was it Bojangles or some kind of fast food chicken restaurant was um, as a guy who was endorsing it, and then I saw one of the guys in the Gator football team was endorsing some kind of local concrete company,
Oh
that
wow.
they pour concrete. Yeah, so it's just strange, from big names to small names as far as products, and big names, small names as far as players go. Interesting to see how it all shapes out. I mean, can you just imagine how Johnny Manziel is feeling right now? Just how much Cam Newton, how much money they would have been banking on back then before it was illegal, before it was legal. I mean, I think actually, come to think of it, did they give some players back their like? Did Reggie Bush get his Heisman Trophy
I don't think that they
back?
did that. And the only you were talking about Johnny Manziel. He actually like a couple of months ago came out hopefully on a podcast or something. It wasn't ours,
Yeah,
so I wasn't too attentive. But admitting that he would go into a hotel room and just sign stuff for hours and under
right.
closed doors, and
I did see that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But can you imagine if he didn't have to do it in secret? I mean, he was.
yeah.
I mean, even Tebow. I mean, there's some players out there that have just even the average person that followed college football knew those names and how much money they could have been making from that. Oh, if I was a player like them, I'd be ticked. Like, now you do it.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's like you said though. It's so new. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, how it shapes out. My hesitation is part of it is real concern. Part of it is just being selfish. The real concern is, do you see a guy that takes the money now that could have, if he just didn't mess with the money, had a better career in the NFL? Maybe takes the money now when he's an 18, 19-year-old guy and he's making $1 million and he's can't handle $1 million. And access and everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about that. But you saw that with the NBA, so there is some precedence there. Selfishly, I think this is really we're going to see maybe this year, maybe next year, it's really going to hurt bowl games. Because I'm a star player, but my team went 8-4 and is going to the Outback Bowl, and I've made $2 million or thousands of dollars, why would I play that game?
We can
Convince
thank
me to play that game.
yeah, we can thank Christian McCaffrey for setting that precedent many years ago.
Yeah, yeah. What's his name? Fournette comes
Fournette.
to mind.
Yep.
And
Fournette
they
was
weren't
legit though, in my opinion. He was really hurt, and he was like, I just can't do it.
Yeah,
McCaffrey
yeah.
is like, I'm perfectly healthy and just don't care.
Still not going to. So I think you're going to see that amplified. I mean, you might even see players where your team doesn't have a chance of making the playoff, and it's halfway through the season, and a player dips out. It's like, well, I'm making money now. Convince me to play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm a little bit worried about. I mean, in a small sense, you saw. I mean, you look at you're seeing it already. Florida's bowl game last year. I'm not making excuses, but to be honest, like a lot of our key players did not play in that bowl game, and we got waxed. I think it's going to be amplified. You're going to see more and more. If it's not the big playoff games, maybe that's why they're maybe expanding to 12 teams is maybe it counters that. But I think there's a lot of bowl games that are not as fun or meaningful, or you're going to have shells of a team playing that because of something like this. Because you're already starting to see it. It's already happening. But now I'm just kind of worried, like, hey, convince me to play now. Convince me to play if I've already made enough money.
True.
But that's my hesitation as far as big picture down the road.
Yeah. So
Selfish, to be honest. It's selfish.
understood. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So two thoughts, and I think you're right. There is a great chance of that happening with the expansion of 12 teams to the playoff coming probably in, I would say, by the end of the decade at the very latest. Mm-hmm. And then what I hope doesn't happen is it doesn't trickle down into like rivalry games late in November.
Right. Yep.
But on the flip side, a way to mitigate that is you will probably, let's hope, fingers crossed, see some kind of partnership or deal for the people that are sponsoring him to saying, okay, you have to play X number of games, or you have to work with your coach on, playing here, here, and here, because if it's like Florida playing LSU and a key player is just going to sit it out, I think a sponsor like Bojangles would have a problem with that. But, I don't know what kind of contracts they come up with. So here's the hoping, Chris, that they kind of work that out so your fear doesn't come to life.
Yeah. Because it kind of stunk, like the Cotton Bowl watching us play Oklahoma. I was excited we were there, but I mean they were on the up, and we were like, our players. I mean, we didn't have our bowl game, if you will, was that SEC championship game, and so like it was just weird, kind of like we got waxed, but I'm like, it's not our team. That's not, and I'm just worried it's going to happen more and more. And like you were saying, not just the bowl games, but the late in the schedule, late in the year rivalry games. And I just really hope it doesn't affect it that way. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
True. All right. Well, now time will tell on this, and the season will probably give us better indicators. But any final thoughts on name, image, likeness?
I don't think so. I know I'll probably like him down the road, and we'll chime in another podcast. But that's it for now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of like a let's wait and see kind of deal.
Right.
Let a full year get under our belt.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, moving on to some other minute news, not a big deal. Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC.
Yeah. Again, what? And we've seen conference realignment before, and that was weird back then, but those are some big names. And I was just kind of shocked when I saw that. I was like, what? One, you don't see it coming. And two, those are some really big names going to the SEC. And I thought Texas had didn't they have their own like channel or something like that?
Longhorn Network, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't think they needed the SEC. That makes any sense. But I guess I didn't see they were going anywhere with the Big 12. But yeah, crazy. I mean, now you're going to see the Gators going to Norman. The Gators hosting Texas. That's just going to be crazy to see. Alabama and Oklahoma in the middle of the season. Georgia and Texas middle of like. I'm just thinking of these matchups that we're going to see. Yep. We got a hint of it. It was last year, LSU, or 2 years ago, LSU played Texas, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, and then obviously the dominoes that come with that. I mean, logistically, where do they fall in? I mean, so they probably go to the West, obviously, but then who goes to the East? I think geographically, Alabama and maybe Auburn.
Yeah, since when do they care about geography, though?
True, very true.
Missouri's in the East right now.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't make any sense. Or we get Alabama, Auburn, and Missouri goes over. I don't know. But yeah, very crazy stuff. And then now, what does the Big 12 do with the remaining teams? Do they reach out to group of 5 teams or conferences? And now is it like recently the ACC, Pac-12, and Big 10 are going to join us? Mega super conference or something?
Would you like to form an alliance, to quote Dwight Schrute? Yes. They
formed
formed an alliance. So, yeah. I mean, you could see down the road Florida State playing Michigan, yeah. Miami playing Oregon. You're going to get those kinds of matchups. The Pac-12, I just don't care enough about to whatever. There's only like 3 teams I even really know and like semi-follow just because I don't want to stay up till 3:30 in the morning to watch a game.
Yeah, it's true. Like, unless USC's played Notre Dame, I don't care about it. It was a friend of mine named Dupree. He said, if a Pac-12 game is played and no one is awake to watch it, did it ever really happen?
I will never get tired of that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. I just don't. I mean, people in the SEC do not care. ACC do not care. Yeah. About the Pac-12, so it's interesting that they would join. I would figure they would join the remaining Big 12, but
I really don't see the Big 12 having a future out of this.
Yeah, I mean, you can't lose your two biggest and survive.
I really think it's more likely they go the way of the Southwest Conference, or what was that conference that Boise State used to be in forever? I can't remember the name of it. Because it doesn't exist anymore. That's my point. Is that it's going to go away. The WAC, that was what it was.
WAC.
Western Athletic. It had like Louisiana Tech, Boise State, Hawaii. And so when that disbanded, they just kind of went and joined everywhere else. The Big East, same thing. Yep. They kind of became the AAC. They kind of grabbed parts and pieces and added a few here and there. So, there you go. Once a conference like that loses its biggest players, I think the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
I know that Texas and Oklahoma still had contracts for a couple of years, but they're really pushing like next year to get into the SEC. They're really wanting it to happen like now.
Interesting. I'll from the moderate amount of research and outlets I followed for the ACC, let me just tell you that Florida State and really any team in the ACC, Miami, Clemson, Vatech, the ones you would want to get, they're not leaving the ACC.
No.
When the Athletic Coast Conference expanded in 2004, 2005, they basically wrote it in the contract that said, not only we're not doing this crazy mess like Maryland where you can just pay a buyout of $60 million and leave because they went to the Big Ten. They wrote it in the contract in such a way that you would basically owe a fee per year and whatever you still owe rights and royalties through, like, I think 2036. So the price would be astronomical. It's not just a one-time fee of whatever exorbitant amount the ACC would charge. You would owe basically not only that, but times 15.
Okay.
And so it is just not happening.
Yeah, wow. I know that for like a brief second there was rumors of Clemson and FSU also joining, but it sounds like they're staying put now.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's just out of all the teams, I would not expect Texas and OU. And if you're Texas A&M, you're gonna be like, "Come on, man, we just left these guys."
Yeah.
It's interesting how. So if you're in the SEC, you play 9 SEC games now.
Oh, geez, I guess you'd have to.
Ugh.
Yep.
But I guess what helps is like we talked about earlier, and we can talk about this now. But the expansion of the playoff.
Sure.
That's going to play into all this stuff. So that'll help because, it's already tough to go through a conference schedule like that and make it to the playoffs. Although SEC has been setting like 2 every year. But this will help, I guess. I don't know. It's just a lot of question marks.
Well, I'm going to quote our guest from 2 episodes ago, Phil Steele. So he had a take on an article about this expansion 2-3 years ago maybe. And he is against expanding it past 4. So he's not going to get his wish here, I really don't think. And his biggest argument was, when you do that, at the end of the season, whoever is claiming the national championship trophy and hoisting it up and having the parade most likely isn't the best team in the country. It's more likely to be the team that could stay healthy the longest through a longer season. Because he said that's what's already happening with the NFL. The NFL has 4 preseason games. By the way, the players don't get paid for those 4.
Oh.
Then 16 regular season with 1 bye week. And then you have a 12-team playoff. Or excuse me, it's 14 now, I believe. Not NFL follower all that much. But so 4 plus 16 plus 4, 24 games.
Yeah. I think they were talking about adding 1 more game to this regular season.
Yeah. And so, you're watering down the talent that even makes it into the playoffs. Yeah. So then you go with the top 12. Yes, everyone's going to talk about how you're letting more people in. And everyone gets a fair shot. Okay. I can get that to an extent. But it's also devaluing the regular season. And that's what college football's been about forever. We didn't even have a playoff until the BCS. We all know that was kind of an interesting disaster.
Mm-hmm.
But it at least got us started with, hey, we're going to have some kind of system that's going to say, okay, you're number one, you're number two, play each other. Right. Versus, the 80s where you had, you're just stuck with whatever bowl tie-in that your conference set you up with. And then you had, like, in 1984, BYU wins the national championship and they win a bowl game as an unranked team. That's no bueno. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we've kind of made some steps in the right direction. But yes, the expansion of the playoff will allow teams, to your point, out of the SEC. You're going to probably see 3 or 4 every year.
Yeah, I think so. And I think 8 is the most you should have. I could see you can maybe doing 6, having the first 2 round buys. I would say 8's the sweet spot. 12, I think is ridiculous. But maybe this is what's needed with these super conferences and mega conferences and alliances. So maybe.
Yeah.
But craziness going on in college football. And to think, I thought it was going to be normal.
Yeah.
Silly me, thinking this is going to be a normal off season. That's why we love college football. Even though it drives us nuts sometimes, it makes us scratch our head.
Yep.
This is why we like it, though.
Yep. So, remind me of the years, Chris. We're talking, 3 or 4 years out before this happens? Is that right? With the expansion?
Yeah, I can't really remember. I know that Texas and Oklahoma are tied to the Big 12, I want to say through 2025 with their contract, but they are pushing like next year.
Okay.
Well, where it'll end up, I don't know. I think that, at least Texas can buy out anything, so.
It's just if you don't want to. Well, we'll let the fans correct us on the year.
Yeah.
Just by the way, where can the fans reach out to us, Chris, real quick?
FloridaFocusPodcast.com. Please hit us up. That's where you can find the old episodes, but also hit us up and let us know what your thoughts are on the name, image, likeness, the playoff, your super conferences. Are you pro for? What's your gut reaction to these things?
I'm trying to be seamless. I know we usually plug that closer to the end, but I saw the opportunity. I took it. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a crazy wild ride, and I think you and I have discussed this ad nauseum, but I'll just play it one more time. I really hoping and praying they take the chance to realign the divisions in the SEC, and even if they don't go the division route, West versus East, I've seen where you do like quote unquote pods, where you'll say, okay, you're the Florida Gators, and you're going to play these 4 or 5 teams every single year, and they're going to rotate in the rest.
Yeah.
I've seen theories on that for the ACC. That way you keep the rivals you want. I would assume for Florida, you're talking about LSU. Maybe you add back in Auburn, Georgia. I'll let you film the list because you know it better. But with Florida State, you're like, you keep Miami, you keep Clemson, you keep NC State, you keep a cupcake like Duke. And then you rotate in the rest. That way a guy in theory that plays 4 years or 5 or 6 or whatever they get up to now, they get to play every team at least once.
Yeah, the pods might be your best bet. That's kind of what the NFL does too. The AFC West, NFC North, they have, I think it's like 14 pods essentially, and they rotate them in, and they have a system. So it's probably, I wouldn't mind that. If Florida, if it were in a pod of say 3 other teams, Georgia, Tennessee, and then who's that last team? That'd be a tough one.
Keep Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky would be good. It'd be good for basketball, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind that as my, that'd be a good pod. I don't know if that works out geographically, but like you said, they don't really care. So
yeah,
it don't matter. None of this matters.
Yeah, the Atlantic Coast Conference is creeping into Louisville, Kentucky, so that's not a whole lot there.
Right.
And just a quick thought, we'll shout out just a little bit of love to the other schools in the state of Florida. I don't really know how this news impacts like UCF, South Florida, Atlantic, FIU, and if at all, to be completely honest. I think that this is a good time to make a move. If I've always said UCF and South Florida should go together. I don't care that South Florida is bad. They're going to bring in the Tampa market, and so the Atlantic Coast Conference is different from the AAC in that almost all of the teams in the AAC are in major cities. You have Memphis, Tampa, Orlando, Cincinnati. There's a couple of small. Tulane's in New Orleans. SMU's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. East Carolina is only the one that's kind of rural because it's in Spartanburg, I think. We talked about this before. But, this is a good time for them to pitch themselves again to say, hey, we're here. We can come together. UCF has enough cachet. They have an old SEC coach now. We're going to talk about them in the next episode. But, this would be a chance for them to throw their hat in the ring with all this alignment because we know this would happen about 15 years ago.
Yeah, and if I'm UCF, I am pushing hard. I'm like screaming to take us now because, their stock is pretty high, especially the last couple of years. They had that undefeated season. Like they have a high-profile coach or a higher-profile coach now. If I'm them, the iron is hot. You better be striking now.
Sure. And it's not just football. You got to consider what kind of endowment they have. What do they offer in other sports?
Yeah.
And you're going to get people to travel to Orlando. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's an interesting thought though with adding USF. But why not take your rival, take that market? And they're not good in football now, but maybe they will later on.
I'm doubtful, but whatever.
Yeah, trying to be nice.
They're trying. They're trying. Yeah. So, but that's kind of my thought process there. Florida State's not going anywhere. US in for a wild ride, and it's gonna be pretty rocky for everybody. Even if you bring in some pretty mediocre teams, you're still going to struggle just because it's a different style. No one to this day can explain why NC State continues to beat Florida State. And yet they're like 500 against each other in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
They're not good. They weren't good when they beat Florida State a lot of the time. Until recently, they weren't even an equal program. Yet they continue to struggle. Florida has their Achilles heels too. Bama struggled with Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss. Everybody just has something that was like, I don't know why, but I just can't beat this team.
Yeah, for real.
So.
Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. But I love it.
Yep. All right. Well, crazy offseason for 2021. Any final thoughts or any subjects we didn't talk about that I forgot?
That's a good question. I think those are the big three.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own, we'll talk about this next episode, but the new coaches and stuff like that, it's kind of, you think that would be the big talking point, but no, that's kind of take a back seat. But
very true.
As far as the big stuff, that's it.
Yep. Just 1 or 2 minutes here. I know that Florida State had a spring game. It was a little bit different. UF opts to skip theirs this year. Mm-hmm. The Noles kind of tried to tie this into a recruiting opportunity. A lot of other schools weren't really open for visits, and so it was kind of an interesting spin. Norvell, since it counts as a spring practice, just really didn't work the guys too much. You do see Mackenzie Milton, and he kind of did some interesting things. He brought in some guest play callers for the second half. Okay. So they basically both got to run 2 series on offense, 2 series on defense. The irony is, I know one of them is Andrea Adelson, who was a Gator, and is a sports writer still for ESPN. And I forget the other guy's name, but he was a Gator as well. So they had just like they would, they had a coaches meeting before the spring game. They brought him in and talked about the play sheet, the play calls, and then they called every play during those series. So kind of interesting spin on it.
That's interesting. Yeah. Florida, for second year in a row, didn't have a spring game, but they're trying to counter that with having more access during some of the practices, having Instagram Live, which was nice. And they've having scrimmages, which reporters were at the scrimmages, and they were able to report how the players look.
Okay.
Which is, it's better than nothing. I like that they're making an attempt. They're not just like saying, "Hey, well, it's not happening." It's something. I think that I like that at least they're thinking of the fans somewhat.
Yeah.
How can we give them something if we can't give them the spring game? So it was pretty cool. I liked following it. Watching the players practice and go through some reps as if I was there. So I was nice. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not the main.
Sideshow, a little reprieve. Yeah.
reprieve. Oh, I'm blanking. It's not like the main thing, but it's a
Consolation prize.
Consolation prize. Thank you.
Hey,
You're the smart one on the podcast,
bro. This is the 108th time we've done this, so I figured by now we should figure each other out. It happens.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. Well, obviously I'm excited, and this makes for an interesting season.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah. I promise I wouldn't spend too much time on COVID, but I think the ruling is they're really aiming for 85% vaccination rate on the squads, and I believe the rule is, if I read it correctly and understood it, if there's a reason why you have to cancel a game or can't play because of vaccination rate is below that percentage, then it will not go down as like a contest this year. It will go down as a forfeit. So you will go to the L.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the other thing that we should talk about briefly here.
Yeah.
Is that I know that Florida, I think Mullen said they had 90% of they said program. I don't know if that players, coaches, training staff, whatever, 90% are vaccinated.
Gotcha.
Florida came out today and said that they're not requiring that you to be vaccinated to attend games. Yet I think LSU is requiring you need proof of vaccination to attend games. Georgia said they're not. So that's going to be interesting. Another wrinkle too.
Yeah, it really goes back to the conferences. They're making the decisions on their own again, and we're going to have more interconference play than we did last year. I believe I heard that the Georgia Clemson game, crazy, did that game's even happen, especially week 1.
Yeah,
I think they were like requiring masks at the game. So, what gives? What are we doing here? Which one's more important?
Yeah,
the
inconsistency is a little annoying. But yeah, like if you're not vaccinated but want to go to a game at a home game that say you're a Georgia fan not vaccinated, you can go to that game. But I can't travel to LSU,
right,
to support my team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. But also another thing I noticed last year, you talked about games being canceled, rescheduled, whatever. But last year they had limited games. Like SEC had 10. But so there wasn't a full schedule. You had like an extra bye week, and you had a little more wiggle room. If a game needed to be rescheduled, it could. This year it's full schedule, so you can't really move games if they have to be. They're probably not going to be rescheduled. They're probably just going to be flat out canceled.
Yeah, unless there's like some kind of conference decision hanging on that game, and then they'll really try and move it. But yeah, you're right. They're going to probably shift it into like, okay, we've got this common bye week, or you're both playing non-conference, you're going to get rid of that, kind of deal.
Right, yeah. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, and if you're a Florida State fan, you should actually be very worried about this because they have not said that they've reached that rate, and they're still efforting to get there. So I'll save my thoughts on wins for the year, but they're going to be hard to come by, and it would be really silly if we had to, well, that's an understatement, if we had to forfeit a game because of this. So to all the Florida State fans that are listening at this very moment, and the players in the school, encourage them to get the vaccine, because if for no other reason, we don't want to not play a game, especially a home one. So, there we go. That's I'm gonna get off a little stool there. I'm not even gonna get into my ideas. I'm just saying, if for no other reason than to not forfeit a game, go get it done.
Yeah. Even if it's selfish college football fan reasons. Yeah.
Give me my football, man. I've been waiting a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting off season.
Yeah. So I think that might be it.
Okay.
As far as the big stuff. So.
Sounds good to me. We can always throw it in the next episode if we think about something we want to double back to.
We will. Yep.
Well, yeah, thank you for your thoughts, and for the previous episode, the Jeopardy quiz. Thank you for your efforts on that, Chris. Appreciate it.
I meant to say during that episode, by the way, I didn't really double check everything. I checked everything once. So if anyone catches a mistake I made, sorry. To be honest, there's a couple questions I did double check, but most of them I was like, oh, the internet says it's got to be true.
Sure. Oh.
So
there we go.
Just my little disclaimer there. So
I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm sure you're fine with all that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You're right.
Yeah. Anyways, all right, man. That's been fun chatting, catching up. Looking forward to the season coming up.
Absolutely. Really quickly, for fans that want to support the show, thank you to Jared, thank you to Tyler, and thank you to Ingram. You can do so at patreon.com/Florida Focus Podcast. You'll get access to early episodes, secret episodes, and we will give you access to our text chat, which is never dull.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts, Chris, before we wrap up just what happened this crazy off season?
I believe that is it.
All right.
Believe.
Yeah. Well, thank you again to the fans and for your support. This is Brandon saying go Knowles.
Go Gators.